Hi, my name is Annie Cramer, and I will open and start giving myself 15 seconds now. This comedian that rose to fame in the 2010s has many a story, one of which including the time he met Bill Clinton. That's right, John Mulaney met Bill Clinton when he was a little boy whenever he was going to a political rally. His mom dragged him through the stage trying to get him to Bill Clinton because he wanted to say hi to her old friend that she knew from college. And so she used her son to get to Bill Clinton. And the way to do so, he replied, "Hey, Helen," because he remembered her. She proceeded to say he wants to be president when he grows up. This whole situation was incredibly chaotic just because she wanted to spend time with this future president of the United States and used her son to get them there. This was an incredibly chaotic experience, which we can use for the quotation by President George W. Bush, "In chaos, there is opportunity." And depending on how we react to George W. Bush, I agree with this quotation. In fact, the way we go about life is incredibly chaotic, and that is the only way we can do it. We can examine through chaos getting things done. We can provide this with successes from chaos as well as the failures turned successes from chaos. First and foremost, we have so many successes coming off of chaos. Life itself is sporadic and unpredictable. And we can examine through the television series The Office as well as the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off that chaos and through success is a positive outlook. The famous television series The Office shows Michael Scott opening Michael Scott's paper company, and even though at first it's not as successful, when it closes down, he ends up tricking his way into being back into the manager position with Pam as well in a sales rep position. So even though it was a little chaotic at first, they managed to find their way to success. And going on to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of the most iconic films from the 80s, see the entire movie based around these three teenagers that are trying to live life to the fullest. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop to look around once in a while, you may just miss it. That is the whole theme of the film. We see Ferris Bueller pretending to be sick, ultimately staging that he has to get his kidney transplanted, and the whole town going, "Save Ferris," him hopping on a parade and singing and lip syncing, them ending up crashing a vehicle, all in all, to be back at home, tricking his parents into thinking he's sick. This whole film is talking about his success of tricking everybody to think that he is in fact sickly, when realistically, he was living his best life with his buds. So we can examine through Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Office that these successes through chaos can be incredibly helpful. Moving on to our second point, we can see through the failures of chaos that we can still provide answers through Schitt's Creek as well as Tim Collery. Schitt's Creek was another television series that rose to fame in the late 2010s, especially gaining prominence during the 2020 pandemic. Towards the end of the series, we see them trying to landmark Rosebud Hotel out for other people to buy it as a franchise. And although there is quite the failure and blunder at the end, with Ronan knocking down the glass of water on the table, ultimately trashing their entire production, they end up finding success otherwise. But it's not through this chaotic failure where Ronan stands up for himself and his team do we examine that although it's chaotic and they did fail, they still will rise to prominence in another way. They ended up later on finding success in being able to sell Rosebud Hotel to someone else, as well as rubbing it in their opposer's face. And finally, moving on to Tim Collery. Tim Collery was the original pick to be the drill sergeant in Stanley Kubrick's iconic film, Full Metal Jacket. Now, Full Metal Jacket in and of itself is a very intense film, and he locked himself in a hotel room for a month straight, preparing for this role. Even though he was trying the best he could, someone else ended up sweeping up and taking it over in the time that he was prepping, which really got to him, and I do not blame him as a matter of fact. However, later on, they promised him another role in the film, which ultimately was taken away from him and cut out of the movie. So not only did he have one failure from the film, but two as well. Even though he had these types of failure, he didn't let that slow him down. He rose back up to prominence and went back at it again. Even though he had this type of failure, he went on to talk about how failure is an important aspect, that it is okay to have this type of failure out and about. For even though he had this, he was able to make something good out of it. So through Tim Collery as well as Schitt's Creek, you can find through failures turning into successes that, even though it's a chaotic experience, it does not mean that one is not successful. Finally, we have concluded that through failures and successes that chaos get things done, and that George W. Bush's quote, "In chaos there's opportunity," is in fact accurate. In this day and age, chaos is imminent. It is everywhere, and there's no preventing it. That's how it always been, and it's how it always will be. What is life without a little bit of chaos anyway? In fact, if there was no chaos, life would be pretty boring as a matter of fact. What would it be? Absolutely nothing. And we can provide that, yes, John Mulaney was correct. Even though it was a little bit of a chaotic experience meeting Bill Clinton, he was able to succeed and meet him in the end.